This episode of the Pain Education Corner is sponsored by the Comella Foundation. The Comella Foundation is committed to relieving pain naturally using osteopathic healing principles. Here at the Comella Foundation, we envision a world where people achieve their maximum potential by being empowered with knowledge and skills to heal themselves and others. This information is to be used for educational purposes only and not to be construed as medical advice. If you have any questions or concerns, please consult a licensed healthcare professional. Hello, it's Bill, the knee pain guru, and welcome to the Pain Education Podcast brought to you by the Comella Foundation. And today's guest is Mo Goldstein.
That's easy for you to say.
Out of Ashville, North Carolina. And Mo specializes in massage as well as movement. Want to dig in today to really understand Mo's perspective on pain. So welcome, Mo.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Mo, could you share your background, history, kind of how you got into what you're doing?
Sure. I thought I was going to go into microbial genetics. So I'm a little bit of a biology nerd. And further back than that, I grew up as a hippie kid in the woods of Western North Carolina. Fast forward to almost finishing college and realizing I appreciate the people with patience to be in a laboratory, but I'm not one of them. So ran off to be a snowboard bum in Colorado and broke my back snowboarding in '96. And that was the day I decided to become a massage therapist. That's the very short version.
So you broke your back?
Yeah. I mean, it's a compression fracture of L2. I basically landed really flat from really high up on a snowboard, compression fracture. As I like to say, most injuries happen as a result of rapid decelerations, and this was one of those.
And okay, you broke your back. Did you have surgery? Was there physical therapy involved? No surgery?
There was physical therapy and some yoga and some massage. And very fortunately for me, my first experience with yoga was a yoga teacher who was very much alignment based and was really into working with stabilizing the core and creating mobility in the limbs, which is a big part of what I do with folks as well. I'm not anti-yoga by any means, but I've seen a lot of injuries from yoga in my practice and in my own yoga practice as I progressed further down that path. But my initial yoga practice was really a big part of getting me back into function. I wish I knew this lady's name. She was just teaching at the Breckenridge Rec Center, and it was like me and a bunch of old ladies in the class, and it was awesome. It was really a life-changing experience. Nice.
And that was in your process of your healing?
Yeah, I was 24 years old, I think, at the time.
Got it.
I'm now 50 and feel better than I did at that age.
Yeah, I hear that. So tell me what from there, from the woman who was teaching the yoga class in the Breckenridge Rec Center to now, what was your education like? Your training? What happened for you then?
Well, I went to massage school at the Boulder College of Massage Therapy, which at the time, so far as I knew, was the best school in the country. My personal reason for choosing that school is the one that was conveniently located to where I live.
Okay.
I had to work 2 jobs for a year to save up, and then I went to night school there and continued working during the day at a coffee shop. And that's kind of how I built my initial practice. It was like my regular coffee customers became my first massage client. In Boulder, I was working with a lot of athletes, mountain bikers, runners, martial arts people like you. I have a background in martial arts, which certainly martial arts and dance have also played a big role in how I approach both body work and my movement coaching. I started doing massage therapy in 1999, and I've been a martial artist and an adventure sports athlete throughout my whole career. So I've stumbled into my own injuries and encountered injuries in the people that I play with and work with. And so I kind of see every injury as a learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
My wife has learned this about me. Every time I get hurt, she's like, "What are you going to do now?" I was like, "I'm going to learn." Hopefully I learn how to not get that injury again also, but I also learn how to heal that injury. And, at this point, a lot of the clients that I'm seeing when they first come in, it's sort of evolved, because for a while there, it was like I was working with really high performance athletes when I was younger and living in Boulder, working with people who are professional competitors, mountain bike racers, martial arts competitors, things like that. And it's like, as those people have aged out of their competitive world, they're still athletic and they still want to take care of themselves. And they start referring me people that are sometimes in their 50s, 60s. My oldest regular client is in his 80s. And so now I'm getting to work with a lot of people who really haven't been athletic. Mm-hmm. Or, as I say, they're computer jockeys. They're really good at sitting still and staring at a screen, which
right.
To me, as you can tell by the way I fidget, I'm actually not super good at sitting still. Mm-hmm. It actually kind of hurts my body sometimes to sit still. So that's part of my own pain management and pain avoidance. Is I like one person you might consider having on here is Katie Bowman. She wrote "Move Your DNA." I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I like to quote her as saying, "The best position to be in is the next one."
Uh-huh.
I think a big part of what creates pain in our bodies is doing things that we're not genetically designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
I would say, no, I don't need to run on forever. Interrupt me with questions.
Okay.
Well, I feel like movement culture currently in the US is kind of like, it's like eating canned spinach. It's like, oh, I know it's good for me. I need to do it. I got to go to the gym, or I got to do this thing. And, those of us in the martial arts world, I think, have a pretty good taste of like, movement can be joyful. You could do things that are fun, right, to get in shape as well. And so I'm trying to do my little part to help movement culture be a little more like, eating fruit off the vine, doing things that we dig doing as much as possible.
Yeah. I very much subscribe. I fidget a lot as well, even in the context of these interviews. I struggle being in the same place for the entire period. So I know exactly what you mean. And I do work at home a lot, but I'm constantly getting up and moving and doing something else every few minutes. So yeah, I understand what you mean. A person that comes to you in pain, or a person that comes to you is dealing with an injury, what is the first thing you're going to do? How does that work in Mo's world?
I guess it depends on the type of injury. And a lot of people come to me is not even knowing what the injury is. It's more like a chronic pain thing. Mm-hmm. I've got this thing in my neck, my low back ache. If they're in acute pain, usually the first thing I'll do is say, how does it feel to walk? Mm-hmm. Can you walk without pain? And they're like, well, I try not to make anybody do anything that's going to make their thing feel worse. And often I just start with that question: is there any position or movement that makes it feel better or worse? Mm-hmm. And usually they have that one thing that they know they can't do. And I'm like, okay, so don't do that. Let's see what else you can do. And I guess I kind of play with them a little. Mm-hmm. Not as in mess with them, but as in like, let me see you move. Let me see you get up and down out of a chair. How does it feel when you squat? Obviously, most people in our culture can't squat. And that was part of my journey, with the 6-month process that it took me to learn how to squat like a human. Mm-hmm.
And just for the listeners, just so we're clear, I know what you mean by squat, but I think there would be people, right, get like butt to the ground is what I consider a squat. Many people, they're kind of getting maybe a little past 90 degrees, or in what they would do in terms of maybe like a barbell weight squat, where they're getting enough down, but not a full, complete butt to the ground squat.
Yeah, I mean, I call it the resting squat, right? Like this is a place. Often, if I'm checking text messages on my phone, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a comfortable place for me to not hurt my neck. And as somebody who works on my feet all day, getting to this position is actually restful. But it wasn't initially. Actually, it wasn't possible when I first started learning about it.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of the folks I work with, they've never even seen this.
Right.
Of course, I also work with CrossFitters and people who really have put a lot of work into their squat. And as you alluded to, for some people, like some of the CrossFitters I work with, it's like they can back squat a ton of weight, but they can't actually just like hang out like a couple of Chinese dudes on the street smoking cigarettes.
Right.
They can't be comfortable in what, in my opinion, should be part of our natural movement spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you have this experience, you're playing or you're messing with your client to discover where their sticking points are. What are you doing to free that up? How are you
to free up the sticky parts?
Yeah, free up the sticky parts to relieve the acute pain or whatever is going on in their neck, their back, their shoulder.
Well, usually people come to me first for massage. Like massage is sort of the gateway drug to my movement coaching.
Okay.
It's more widely known. It's more popular now in our culture. And like most things that people seek out, it doesn't require much work on the part of the participant. It's way easier to like lay on the table and have somebody rub on it. And frankly, more pleasant than a lot of exercise as people have come to know it.
Sure.
So depending on the person, there might be some trigger point therapy, some myofascial release, some of the classic bodywork techniques to try and free up some physical adhesions, but also some neuromuscular places things are holding on to. Quite often, depending on the nature of the thing, one massage is when it gets off the table, like, oh man, I feel awesome. Which that's why I went into massage is, for one, I just have a natural tendency of putting my hands on people, and it's better to do it in a context where they're ready for it and feel comfortable with it.
Sure.
I used to massage my friends in college. Somebody get hurt playing football, and I work on their shoulder, and they'd be like, "Dude, you should do this for a living." I was like, maybe I should. So yeah, I do. But the thing that led me to the movement coaching was, in the first 10 years of my massage career, I'd work on people, and then they'd be back the next week with the same pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, get in there, I work it loose, they get off the table, they're like, oh my God, I'm 100% better. See you next week. And I kept feeling like, why is it that we keep having to do the same thing?
Right.
For the same problem? And I started seeing these patterns in people that were really common. And then I started seeing the same patterns in myself. And I'd go get a massage. I had this one place on my back right here that was always tight. And I'd get in there and, have somebody put their well-trained elbows in there and grind and do the cross-fiber friction, all the trigger point therapy. It'd feel awesome for a day, and then it'd come back.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to figure out what was causing these imbalances that was then causing the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what led into my movement coaching stuff. And this happened sort of through the process of me relearning how to run barefoot, which happened about 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might have been at the talk I did at one of those paleo potlucks about barefoot walking and running. I think we met through that.
That's correct.
And I was still kind of figuring out, okay, natural movement is a part of this equation. How do we create strength in the weak muscles, open up the tight muscles, these kind of things? And shortly after that, Dan and Micah, who ran the Apeiron Center, or they still do, but the Ashville was closed, invited me to come work with their clients as a coach. And so I started coaching their clients. And the funny thing is, I'm not even a personal trainer. Like, as far as official training, I can teach level 9 snowboarding. I don't have a lot of official training in movement coaching, but I've worked with people who have, one particular woman I remember, I worked with her on her squat. showed her a little thing with her foot, did a little bit of work on her ankle, and she was like, "Where'd you get your PhD?" I was like, "Huh?" She's like, "I have a PhD in exercise physiology. Nobody's ever noticed that about my squat." I was like, "I'm just kind of a nerd. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have any paper credentials to show you."
Yeah. Well, a lot of times the paper credentials create a box that people only look in for the study of movement. And when you have no box to study and you can study whatever you want, so you can draw in from your own personal experiences and what you've discovered about the physical body, your own movement, your own injuries, that can provide somebody with help and relief.
Well, fortunately for me, that's how my practice is spread, is just by word of mouth and people having results. As you may or may not know, I'm all but invisible on social media these days. Like, you and I met through Facebook, I think, is how we started meeting for those potlucks. But I'm fortunate enough to be busy enough doing what I love that I'm actually like almost invisible online. Like,
Okay.
I'm surprised when somebody randomly finds me without a direct referral these days.
Mm-hmm.
But it still happens from time to time.
Sure. So tell us a little bit more about the Barefoot Running and how you incorporate those components.
Okay, so I grew up doing a lot barefoot. I actually ran barefoot in college only because I couldn't find any shoes that felt comfortable. It was just like, oh, this is how I'm happy. My friends in college used to laugh about, they called it my Air Flintstones. This is back when Air Jordans were popular.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be out there running with my dog on the streets barefoot. Never had any trouble with my feet or knees, ironically, until I went to massage school, and we did gait analysis, and we had this they called it clinical kinesiology, and studying each other's movement. And they're like, "Mo, you run funny. You don't have a good heel strike, and you take these short little steps. And you need to stop doing everything in sandals and get some decent running shoes." And long story short, I ended up being like, "Oh, I guess they were right. I screwed up my knees with all that barefoot running." It's 6 months of running in shoes with the so-called correct gait, and I was having pain. And about 12 years ago, I was working at the Grove Park Inn and had the good fortune of working on a 57-year-old man who tells me he runs 10 miles a day. I was like, "Oh, so where does it hurt?" "Oh, nowhere. I'm good." I was like, "What do you mean good?" Like, that's impossible. Running destroys our joints. It's bad for us, blah, 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 all the stuff they told me in massage school. And this guy goes, "Well, you're halfway right. You're actually perfectly designed for running. You just don't do it right." I was like, "Dude, by the time I get off work, my knees and feet and back hurt so bad, running's out of the question." He goes, "Well, take off your shoes and stop beating your feet into the ground." And it clicked pretty quick for me because I had this experience in the past of running pain-free. And long story short, within 6 months of meeting this guy, instead of wearing super feet orthotics and Asics gel and all this stuff, I was working in moccasins on the same stone floors without pain. And it took about a year and a half to relearn my natural gait, but got to the point where I could basically run as far and as fast as I want without pain on essentially any surface. I mean, except for thorns. I'm not thorn-proof. But the way it incorporates into my practice tends to be more about teaching people how to get back in touch with natural foot function and reestablishing a natural walking gait. When I have people who are runners and they're open to it, then yeah, we work on barefoot running as a technique. Most of my clients don't actually run barefoot. I'd say probably fewer than 10% of my clients actually run with their skin on the ground. But almost all of them who are runners and are interested in running, we work with skin on the ground as a teaching tool, and then we start looking at some of the shoe options they have for shoes that are going to allow the feet to still function properly. With a lot of my clients, they hate running, and I say, "Look, I'll never make you run. But if you want to run, we can work on how." The ones who hate running, we just work on walking and the ways in which a proper connection between the brain and feet helps with their balance and helps reduce the impact in their gait. And that greatly reduces pain in the body pretty much everywhere.
This is a side note. I wanted to let you know this morning we did it's called an Ask Dr. Beck. He's a classically trained osteopath that specializes in manual manipulation. We went over 5 primitive retained reflexes for the feet and how they affect things. I'll shoot you a link for that. I'll also put it in the show notes. But the past few weeks, we've gone over aspects of sprained ankles and elements of the foot that he brings to the table when he works with his patients.
And I will say one of the benefits that I tell people about hiking and running barefoot is that sprained ankles essentially don't happen anymore.
Yep. Yeah.
Ironically, shoes cause sprained ankles.
Right. Yeah, it was, I feel there's a false confidence when you have shoes on that make you step and move in ways where you have no repercussions of the pressure that you put on my feet. So
right, and no sense of where you are in space.
Right.
You know, I say it's kind of like the modern footwear model is a little bit like a helmet. You know, and you can just bash into things, and people, you know, you could sort of equate it to like football versus rugby. Right? Football players get a lot of spinal injuries because they're wearing an exoskeleton. They can just slam into each other at full speed. But rugby players, they get some black eyes and some broken noses, but they don't get as many spinal injuries because when you run into another human at full speed without armor, it hurts.
Right.
And you know, the same thing goes to walking and running. It's like if you slam your foot into the ground hard when you're barefoot, it hurts, and your body will instinctually not do that.
Yeah.
But there's also the leverage factor too. Like the further you separate your surface of your foot from the ground, the longer of a lever there is now working against your joint to twist your ankle.
Another piece, and I walk barefoot a lot around where I live, and we have a stone parking lot. And walking in the stone parking lot, you don't take huge steps. They're
like
short.
Gravel.
Yeah, gravel.
Yeah.
So it's smaller steps, and I make sure the foot lands flat
and soft.
Hold on a second here.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So the foot lands flat and soft, and I could zip right along on a gravel parking lot without it bothering my feet.
Well, and part of that is the neurological aspect too. You know, most people have a memory of like first day of summer vacation, everything feels sharp on your feet. And by the end of summer, you're like running on gravel. And we think that our feet get tough, but they don't. It's actually more our brain learns what to do with that sensation.
Yeah.
You know, for me, part of my morning routine, like you, is like go out on gravel here, a gravel parking lot outside my house, and I walk out on sharp gravel every morning. And at this point, I'm so used to it, I don't even really think about it. But as you've probably noticed, when other people try to do what you do, they're like, and it's like they think you have super tough feet, and they expect you to have calluses this thick, and you're like, no, it's just skin.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a softening that needs to take place in the foot. Like the reflexology, it's not that it's toughening the foot, it's softening the foot, where you have those rollers for your feet. You can put it underneath your desk and roll your feet back and forth to loosen up your feet. Loose feet make it easier to walk on different, like a gravel parking lot.
Or the metaphor I think I used at that talk at the Paleo Potluck was catching a brick, right? You know, it's like if I toss you a brick, you can catch it. This thing is hard, it's sharp, it's lumpy, but your hands know to conform around the brick. You know, there's no way in hell you'd punch the brick or slap it, right? But most people's feet are so used to being inside shoes that when they step on something uneven or sharp, their foot like freaks out and it becomes stiff, which of course puts all that pressure into one point. Whereas if your foot can relax around it, then there's no pressure.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Pain Education Corner. If you have a special talent or skill to relieve pain and you'd like to become a guest on our show, visit us at the Comella ComellaFoundation.org/interview. Help us spread the word on eliminating pain and suffering in the world. That's the ComellaFoundation.org/interview. You'll find this interesting. I was reading somewhere that when the body holds tension, there are so many nerve endings per square inch in the physical body. But when the body holds tension, it contracts. So now you have more nerve endings per square inch, which would make it more sensitive and more painful or tender or tight or whatever that is. It was a concept
Makes
of,
sense.
yeah, I thought it. I was like, I didn't think about it that way, but that makes total sense.
I kind of think of it like spicy food.
How? Tell us.
Well, I mean, that's actually kind of one of the ways I look at pain as well. It's like, if you've only eaten vanilla pudding your whole life,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to hand you a green curry.
Right.
Right. And neurologically speaking, like, if your feet have been in shoes your whole life and the only time that your feet are naked is on a flat surface in your house or on carpet, your brain's not used to receiving a lot of information from the 200,000 nerve endings of your feet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to say, hey, let's go walk on the sharp gravel. Right? That's not going to work. We're going to start you off with a little bit of texture. You know, it's like, let's put a few pistachios in your vanilla pudding. And let's work your way up slowly. And like,
Right.
you know, let's try some very mild hot sauce before we throw you into the jalapenos and the
Sure.
and the ghost peppers. But you know, you can condition your body to sense things and not freak out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, too much information is too much.
Mm-hmm.
And if you overload the system, your brain just goes pain. Because you know, as I learned from you, all pain is in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a phrase you gave at one of your talks. Like, and a lot of these things that people think their bodies hurt, it's like the body just remembers how to hurt long after the injury's healed.
Right. Yeah, I think you're bringing up a really good point, is conditioning the body in a way, whether it's walking barefoot, whether it is, getting used to pain or discomfort, but not in an abusive way, a way to condition the body to accept more, be it in a martial arts context. Another piece that comes to mind is cold water immersion. Most people, they're like, oh, they're in a controlled environment 364 days a year, and then they're going to do the polar bear plunge, chop through the ice and then jump in on the day before Christmas. And then all of a sudden it's like too much and overwhelming. And I think there isn't this gradual conditioning of the physical body. And I think that's why people get hurt. Like you were saying, when you jumped from a high place and then hit on the snowboard, it's too much.
So I take it you're a cold shower guy too?
I've been getting into local rivers here in the winter. I started about 4 or 5 years ago. I was doing the bucket over the head going outside. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at the river while I was holding this small little bucket going, you know what? I bet you that would be a little bit more challenging. Yeah. So initially, I was extremely cold averse. Like, it hurt. It was painful. My feet would go numb. And I gradually built up where it was like I could get in the river and then I'd start dunking myself. And now it's almost, I miss it. It's
my wife and I have had this discussion that I need to take my cold shower in the morning before I do anything else, because that's when I actually wake up. You know, the routine is I make coffee first, and then, and I could drink a whole cup of coffee. I'm not awake, but I take a cold shower and I'm like, ready to go.
Yeah. Well, the endorphins that kick in, especially when it gets down into the 30s, 20s, sometimes into the teens, that after you've been conditioning your body for a period of time, that build up in the nervous system. It's the response to the cold stimulus is absolutely euphoric. Pretty wild.
Agreed.
Yeah. But that's not going to happen if I didn't do anything, October, November, December, and then,
Yeah.
That's my New Year's resolution. I'm going to start getting in the water January 1st. It's going to be
Timing.
bad timing.
Yeah. Start now.
Yeah. And that's, as it's been getting colder, there's this feeling of fall in the air that I realize that the water's going to be a little bit chillier than normal. So,
well, you could have the New Year's resolution on Jewish New Year, which was like 2 days ago, I think.
oh, well, perfect. That works. What else working with clients? Do you have any examples you can pull in of clients you are working with currently or have worked with? That would be a good example of where people may be having a disconnect in terms of getting out of pain or how you've helped them.
Actually, there's one. This was kind of a cool story because mostly I've been working with people in person. And then
working with people
in person.
Oh, okay.
I do some remote coaching, but most of it is in person.
Mm-hmm.
But as you probably remember, in March of 2020, all of a sudden that got shut off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at home and had no job. So I went from fully employed to unemployed instantly. And so I started just doing some getting online and doing some Instagram live feed stuff. I was doing this bootless camp thing where I was just getting people moving. And somebody reached out to me, saw me on Instagram. It was a woman I had actually known years ago in Boulder. And she was like, hey, I want to do some remote coaching with you. Great. And I wish I'd taken a before and after photo. This lady transformed in just a few months. She was about to turn 50, and I think she'd had hip surgery. She used to run and she loved it, but she couldn't do it anymore because of all her pain. She was hiking in those super marshmallow shoes.
Oh, the ones with
Hoka's. The miracle shoes. They're like, in my opinion, one of the worst shoes out there. The only thing I like about them is they're lightweight.
Mm-hmm.
But there are probably a few people with injuries that need that kind of cushioning, but this woman was not one of those people. And we started with, where you're at and where you want to go. And we worked together for a while before I even addressed that maybe we want to ditch those shoes. Long story short, she basically graduated out of my program, because she was very good at taking what I taught her and using it. And so we were working like twice a week together for a while, and then it went down to once a week, and then it was like checking in every few weeks. And then she sent me a video of her out trail running in a pair of Earth Runners.
Oh, nice.
These are like 90% of the time when I wear shoes, this is what I'm wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And this lady went from having no dream of running to running pain-free within a few months. But the cool thing is she also strengthened her whole body, and she physically looked like a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool to witness it. And of course I saw it all through this. I haven't seen her in person in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But she looks amazing, and she's really, in my opinion, she's an example of somebody who has taken this concept and really run with it, both figuratively and literally, but getting back into the joy of movement, so that it's not this thing I have to do so I don't get fat. It's a part of who she is again, and it's really cool to see it. Another example I'm thinking of is a woman who came to me, this was a while ago, that she wanted to do a big hike with her husband. They were going to do Mount Kilimanjaro. She ended up doing her first pull-up ever at 64,
Mm,
And at 65, she hiked Mount Kilimanjaro.
nice.
And when we first started working together, you know, the first day assessment stuff, it was like she couldn't do one regular squat, one body weight squat.
Mm-hmm.
And to see people who are chronologically older than when we started, but physically younger is really a joy.
Mm-hmm.
Another example I'm thinking of is as a guy who's a farrier, works with horse hooves and horse care. And I don't remember specifically what his pain was, but we only worked together like a few times, and he didn't need me anymore because everything I taught him, he was using in his daily work, which is very physical.
Mm-hmm.
But then he sent like his teenage son who had back pain, because this kid worked at a feed supply store and was like hauling bags all day with you know, less than ideal movement patterns. I worked with that kid once, never saw him again, but then saw his sister and his mom. And I love working with people like that, where they basically don't really need me. I give them like a few things to work on, and they just suck it up and they use it, and they're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously that's not everybody.
Sure.
There are people who, some of my clients I work with on a regular basis are a little older, they've gotten hurt at the gym, and at this point it's almost like I'm a personal trainer with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm just basically encouraging them and guiding them through their workouts. And I have an environment where they feel like they can do that in a safe way.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So it's hard to say a typical. What is my typical? I don't know. It's kind of all over the place.
Sure.
Sorry for a long and meandering answer.
Well, no, I mean, it's good to get an understanding, because there isn't, it isn't like your conventional physical therapy where it's like, okay, well, you're going to do these sets and these reps, 3 times a week for the next, 2 months, 3 months, and then we'll hope that you'll get out of pain. And no one's body is the same. No one's body fits in like a cookie cutter approach. So there needs to be a uniqueness in understanding and looking at moving patterns and coming to the solution with principles as opposed to techniques.
Well, that is one of the things some of my clients have a hard time with, is they go, how many reps do I do? And I go, well, until, depending on the situation, if it's a strength thing, it'll be like as many as you can plus one.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a movement thing, I'm like, well, until it starts to not feel awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, how do I know that? I'm like, well, does it feel good? Yeah. Okay, keep doing it. Does it stop feeling good? Okay, stop doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm notoriously bad at counting reps, because I almost don't even care how many reps. It's more like, what is the quality of each of these movements?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, the numerical thing is not my strong suit.
Well, when you get stuck in the numerical thing, you can push way past your place of comfort and you can get injured if you aren't listening and understanding what your body is telling you. So I get that. And go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that is how a lot of people that come to me initially, is they got an injury through what I call the machine model of like, I've got this smartwatch, I'm gonna hit this rate, right? I'm gonna get this many steps in, I'm gonna get this, get my mileage down to this speed. And they're so busy pushing for that number that they're ignoring the animal they live in. And so I say, run like an animal, not a machine. And move like an animal, not a machine. It's like, let's get the quality lined up before we worry about how many pounds or how many reps.
Mm-hmm. And I think in the process, those elements increase. Those elements come into play.
Sure. Yeah.
However, it isn't destroying the body in the process.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Hopefully not. So, Mo, is there anything we were chatting about that it's kind of a loose end that we'd like to tie in, or that comes to mind? Anything else you'd like to add?
Play every day.
And what does play look like for you? What does play, when you tell your clients to play, what does that look like?
Well, that's the part that's elusive, is everybody has a different version of play. Like for me at this point in my life, play is a lot of mountain biking,
Mm-hmm.
which I acknowledge is not the best physical thing for my body. It's a highly unnatural thing to sit on your butt and spin your feet in a circle,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's my primary play, along with my work. You know, fortunately, I massage people and train people all day, so I'm always moving. It's almost like I'm doing Tai Chi for a living.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have someone who loves to run, I want to help them learn how to do that again, and I want to give them other things to balance out all that running.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess play is more of a concept than a specific thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people love to dance. I love to dance. Dance is
Mm-hmm.
great. But if you're a competitive ballroom dancer, you're going to create imbalances in your body. I don't want you to stop ballroom dancing. I want to help you continue, but I want to give you tools that you can use to contrast that you're going to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, I don't know about you, but you probably never talked to anybody out of doing what they love doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't try to, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm a cyclist and I have low back pain. I'm not gonna be like, oh, don't ride your bike. I'm gonna be like, okay, let's cut back on the cycling a little and do these other things to balance it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trick is finding a way that they can do those balancing movements. Maybe they won't enjoy them as much as riding their bike,
Mm-hmm.
but if we can find a way that they can feel it as play less than work.
Yeah. And I think that I wouldn't talk them out of what they wanted to do, but I'd pause them for a moment enough so they don't wreck themselves, so we can get some headway and they can see some improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that approach.
It's such a mindset piece I see with when people are in pain. So, well, Mo, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Letting me
Happy to be here.
Pick your brain and you sharing what you love to do and how you help people. That's pretty awesome. What we'll do is we'll put your contact information below if someone wanted to reach out to communicate with you, work with you. You're open to working with people remotely. Is that's still?
Yep, I am. I hopefully will start doing group workshops again once it's considered safe to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to put together sort of like an online video series of basic stuff people can do. I have a YouTube channel that is kind of hit or miss. It's usually like I'm working with somebody in person and they're like, I need a video of that. And I'm like, all right, here, hold my phone. And I make the video and then give it to them. So my YouTube channel is kind of all over the place, but I'm hoping I have this really good problem. I'm busy enough doing what I love that I don't have the time to set up an online presence. I'm hoping in the next year or so to organize my time such that I can do both. But yeah, honestly, the best way for people to get in touch with me is to text me on my cell number.
Okay. Well, we'll include all that. We'll include all that below. We'll make sure we get that from you.
Cool.
Well, awesome. Mo, thank you. Appreciate you
My
very
pleasure,
much.
Bill.
Appreciate your skill and abilities and helping people in the world, making it a nicer, more pleasurable place to be in.
Happy to be part of the team, part of the process. It takes a lot of us to do it.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching. This is Bill Paravano, the Knee Pain Guru, on behalf of the Pain Education Podcast, brought to you by the Comella Foundation. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you on next week's podcast. Thank you for tuning into this week's segment of the Pain Education Corner. Join us next week for another conversation on natural healing methods to eliminate pain. To learn more about the work we do at the Comella Foundation, please visit our website at the Comella, COMELLA, foundation.org.